الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. The theme for tonight, inshallah, the Quranic theme that I'm going to talk about tonight and share with you is the acknowledgement or the appreciation of blessings or bounties or ni'am. This is again a top 10 contender within the Quranic themes and that you'll come across as you're reciting the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Most of you are going throughout the month by performing a khatma on your own and then attending obviously one in the masjid, so listening to the Quran probably hopefully twice, once on your own and once in the Taraweeh. And talking about ni'am, talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's bounties and blessings and the good things in life and the stuff that make you smile and make you happy and the things that you identify as a source of ease for yourself. These things are talked about in the Quran quite commonly, and the Quran looks at blessings from multiple different angles and asks you to appreciate them and acknowledge their source and deal with them in a certain way, and amongst other aspects of understanding what a ni'mah is. And sometimes even appreciating that something that's not of ease can still be a ni'mah, can still be a blessing. Even though sometimes at the time, right at the moment, it's hard for us to see it that way. It's hard for us to identify a difficult moment, a moment of stress or hardship, a misfortune in our lives or a failure. It's hard for us to see it as a blessing. But the Quran also points out that even those things are blessings. They're blessings as well. You just don't know it yet, or you just have not been able to identify that yet. But you will with time. If you obviously do the right thing by it, then you will with time identify the difficulties in your life and the misfortunes and the failures and the tears and the sadness as a blessing that you'll look back on later in life and appreciate what it meant to you and what it did for you and how it allowed you to grow and how it helped you change and become a better person. And what is a bigger blessing than that? Than the things in life. And really, outside of friction, there's absolutely no hope for growth. The human being can't grow if there's no friction in life. If the sparks don't fly here and there, then you're not really going to learn anything. It's those moments of difficulty and hardship that you learn from. And they end up being a blessing in your life just later on when you look back. And if you show some degree of perseverance in your life, the most difficult thing that happened to you while you were alive will turn out to be the best blessing Yawm al-Qiyamah. Because Yawm al-Qiyamah, you're going to see the amount of reward you got for persevering in the face of this difficulty, that otherwise you would not be given that amount of reward. So Yawm al-Qiyamah, you look back and you actually see the difficulties as blessings and the blessings as misfortunes. Like they switch. Even though the blessing that you were given, you could have, inshallah, you used it well, you did the right thing with it, and you used it to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but still, it's not as good as a difficulty. It's a funny thing. Like Yawm al-Qiyamah, all of the equations that dictate our life today change. Right now, I want ease. I don't want difficulties. I want ease. And when I get an ease, I see that as a blessing. Yawm al-Qiyamah is the opposite. All of the difficulties that I persevered when they happened are the biggest blessings. And the ease that I got, they may be blessings because I used them well, but still I'm accountable for them. I'm still being asked about what I did. Like there's more responsibility attached to an ease that I was given, to something that I liked, to wealth or to health or to long life. There's attached to that, affiliated to that, is a lot more accountability, way more questions involved. So even though maybe I used it for something good, but I'm still being held accountable to it very heavily. So it's not as much as a blessing as maybe a difficulty that I persevered in the face of. Maybe as lack of wealth or loss of a loved one or an illness or a broken relationship or a severed family tie. Whatever it is that you end up suffering from, when you persevere in the face of, there's nothing. Once you've done that, you're good. So there's no taxing. There's no tax on the difficulty. It's just the reward. So Yawm al-Qiyamah, you want that. You want something with no taxation on it. Just happened. Here's the reward. It's clean. It's pure. Allah gave you wealth. You did well with it, so there's reward, but there's taxation on that. There's tax on that. You have to pay. Right? You have to pay for that. You're going to be questioned about how much wealth you received and what you did with it and how you used it. So there's taxing on it, and you don't want to answer all those questions. You want something pure Yawm al-Qiyamah. You want less of a headache. So it's interesting that Yawm al-Qiyamah, this whole thing changes. Like the perspective is the absolute opposite. In dunya, we fear the difficulties. We want the ease. Yawm al-Qiyamah, we're looking, how many difficulties did we have? How many times did we persevere appropriately? Because that's the non-taxable. That's the non-taxable income that you'll find Yawm al-Qiyamah. Everything else is there's tax on it. And if you used it, sometimes you'll be given a blessing and you'll use it moderately well and you'll break even. You'll break even. That's it. You'll just break even. One of the people who talked about this is Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab in his life. In an absolutely amazing discussion between him and Abu Musa al-Ash'ari that Abdullah ibn Umar would narrate to us in the collection of Imam Bukhari. As Abdullah ibn Umar and the son of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari were talking, they were buddies, just like their dads were buddies, they were buddies. And he told him, our fathers once spoken, and Umar ibn Khattab asked Abu Musa, what do you think of how we are now in comparison to how the Prophet, when we were with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam? Because I look at things and I miss those days. That was the only good thing that I had in my life, were the days that I lived with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, when we were persevering in front of difficulties and we were fighting and we were hungry and we were tired. That is what, that is where the ajr is. I don't know what happened afterwards. Abu Musa said, no, I think we did well. I think we did some salah and siyam and we did some da'wah and people accepted Islam. I think we did a few things. And Umar, it's a long discussion. It's really beautiful. The wording is absolutely magnificent. And I've narrated it before in other settings. It's too long to do here. And Umar would say, أما أنا فإني بعد وفاة رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام أرجو أن يكون عملي وما أوتيت رأسا برأس سواء بسواء. I hope that after he died عليه الصلاة والسلام, everything that I've done, I just break even. I hope with what I was given. And what I did, I break even. I'm my dependence. I know that I did well with him alayhi salatu wasalam during his life because he told me so. After that, I have no trust in what I did. I hope I can just break even Yawm al-Qiyamah. And the son of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari would say to Abdullah ibn Umar, Wallahi inna abaka la khayrun min abi. Indeed, your father is better than mine. And he had more, and he had a wisdom to him, radiallahu anhu, Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab. Not to say Abu Musa didn't. I'm just saying that in this discussion, there was this depth that they had. Because they understand that you can do well, but if you're living a life of ease, this is heavily taxed, Yawm al-Qiyamah. If you are going through difficulties, then that's pure. That's just pure. So the Quran talks about appreciating blessings. All types of blessings. The blessings that you see, the blessings that you can't see, the blessings that you are able to appreciate in this life right now, the ones that you'll appreciate later. The Quran is very big on this topic, that you have so much to be grateful for. You have so much to be satisfied with. You have so much to work with, really, in your life. Which is why our ummah is the ummah of al-Hammadun, the nation of the ones who show gratitude, who show praise, who praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They always have a reason to show gratitude, to be grateful, to be happy, to be thankful. So, that being said, the first set of verses that we're going to recite, and actually before we do those ones, there's an ayah that's going to be recited in Salat al-Isha that I didn't add here because it wasn't a part of the first four ayat, but it's in Salat al-Isha. So I'm going to slide it in as the first one that I want to point out. And I think this year specifically I should. Specifically this year I should do this. Where Musa alayhi salam in Surat Ibrahim says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Musa alayhi salam, لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا مُوسَى بِآيَاتِنَا أَنْ أَخْرِجَ قَوْمَكَ من الظلمات إلى النور وذكرهم بأيام الله إن في ذلك لآيات لكل صبار شكور. And indeed we sent Musa with our signs to his people, and so that he may remove them from a state of darkness to a state of enlightenment. And we told him, remind them of the days of Allah. Ayyamillah. This phrase you find in the Quran, and this is the only place you find it. Bi-ayyamillah. So Musa did. He goes to his people, and he tells them, اذكروا نعمة الله عليكم. Remember the blessing of Allah upon you. إذ أنجاكم من آل فرعون يسومونكم سوء العذاب ويذبحون أبناءكم ويستحيون نساءكم وفي ذلكم بلاء من ربكم عظيم. Remember how Allah saved you from Fir'aun as he was planning all of these evil tortures and punishments for you, slaughtering your children, enslaving your women, and indeed this was a true test from Allah to you, remember the days of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I say that specifically because for the country that I come from, we witnessed something at the end of last year that was in the minds of most people who lived in the country for the majority of their lives, who understood the politics of that area to a certain degree, and observed the outcome of the 13 or 14 years of the Civil War and the Revolution. Something occurred within less than maybe 10 days and 10 nights that was seen to be by most spectators and most analysts, and myself included in that group, to be absolutely impossible. I can tell you that even now, I still don't believe that it happened. I'm 3 months into this, and I still can't really wrap my head around how quickly it happened. I am lacking closure to so many things that happened within this story. There's so much in it. There's so much emotional baggage that I carry from it that is just not something I can deal with. So I still have not opened that closet. I haven't touched it yet because I don't know how to deal with it. It happened too quickly. But it was a reminder of how swiftly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can change a reality to the point where everyone can be at awe, can just stand there in absolute, just being completely startled by something that occurred, having no understanding of how it happened or why it happened or where it's going. But that's what he means. وَذَكِّرْهُمْ بِأَيَّامِ اللَّهِ. The people of Banu Israel. Now I understand the story of Banu Israel today so much better than I ever did in my life. Like I really understand it in depth today, in comparison to how I understood it just a year ago. I understand what it meant for them when they went across the sea, because how quickly their reality changed from being a population that had been enslaved for decades upon, some scholars and historians say 100 years and more, enslaved for 100 years by a regime that was absolutely unpenetratable. They were unpenetratable as a regime. Fir'aun was way too strong. He just had way too much. And within an hour, within asri bi'ibadi laylan, within a quick, swift, just between dawn and midday. That's it. Between dawn and midday. They left just before Fajr out of Egypt, all of them. And Fir'aun followed them, and by midday, Fir'aun and all of his army had drowned in the Red Sea, and they were on the other side directing their steps towards the Holy Land. I can't say that. I can't say I don't blame them. It's not appropriate. But I kind of understand why they failed afterwards. I kind of get it. A part of me kind of gets it. It was way too much of a transition for them to comprehend what occurred. I'm pretty sure they spent those 40 years walking in the desert just trying to absorb what happened, that Fir'aun actually drowned. I am sure many of them would sleep during those years, waking up scared that Fir'aun was alive again. I have one dream. I see one dream. That's it. If I see dreams, I don't see dreams. I see one dream. It's the same dream. And either I wake up happy because they didn't catch me, or I wake up upset, scared, out of my mind because I got caught. It's the same dream. For the last 12, 13 years, I see nothing else. I'm back home, I'm in a certain place. Either I make it till the end of the day and remembering that I'm an outlaw, or I get caught and then I wake up in absolute fear and terror. So I understand where they're coming from. I understand to a certain degree why they failed. I'm not justifying it, but I understand it. وَذَكِّرْهُمْ بِأَيَّامِ اللَّهِ. Remind them of the days of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May that stay with them. It didn't stay with them. They failed to carry with them the meaning of a day of one of Allah's days. He offered them a miracle, an actual miracle. Forget about Musa's staff and his hand in the 9 ayat. They saw Fir'aun drown. They made it while Fir'aun drowned. That was the miracle that they should have learned from, but they didn't. They didn't. They didn't absorb it appropriately. And for our generation, at least the people who come from my background, we have absolutely no excuse but to, if you don't spend the rest of our days just praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in gratitude for the riddance of this dictator. The first set of verses we're going to recite, inshallah, or here tonight in the first 4 rak'at, and enjoy, inshallah ta'ala, are absolutely gorgeous ayat that come at the end of Surat Ibrahim. Surat Ibrahim is, in my opinion, one of the prettiest and most beautiful surahs in the entirety of the Quran. You can take any part of it, any part of it, and it's absolutely breathtaking. Like some ayat, and all the whole Quran is like that. It's just we are capable of understanding it because it's easy to us. It's close to us. It's qutufuha daniyah. The fruits of the surah is very near to our minds. We're capable of comprehending it. And at the end of this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lets us hear Ibrahim alayhi salam's wordings. This is what Sayyidina Ibrahim, the forefather of our ummah, the one who called us Muslimin, said, وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ اجْعَلْ هَذَا الْبَلَدَ آمِنًا. Oh my Lord, make this country one of security and safety. That was his first request before he talked about Tawheed, as important as Tawheed is within our deen. But the first thing he asked was, Ya Allah, make this balad amin, make it be safe. May people be able to live here securely and safely. Because without safety and without security, there's no functionality for our deen. Our deen can't function without peace. It's impossible. Like, you can't get it done. You can't ask people to have a proper faith and a strong belief system and good ethics and values and reasonable practices. And you can't if there's lack of security and safety. So this first request, اجعل هذا البلد آمنا وجنبني وبني أن نعبد الأصنام. And the second thing he asked, oh Allah, and make sure that myself and my family and my children avoid worshipping asnam, avoid worshipping idols. Rabbi, innahunna أضللن كثيرا من الناس. My Lord, indeed these idols have misguided and misled many people. فَمَنْ تَبِعَنِي فَإِنَّهُ مِنِّي. Those who follow me on this one and listen to me, they are amongst my nation, Ya Rabb. وَمَنْ عَصَانِي. And those who disobey me on this one, فَإِنَّكَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Then indeed you are the most forgiving and the most merciful. This is Ibrahim alayhi salam having hope for the disbelievers. This is Ibrahim saying, وَمَنْ عَصَانِي. And those who disbelieve in me, those who don't accept my tawheed, فَإِنَّكَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Then you are the most forgiving and the most merciful. This is the wording of Abu al-Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam, the father of prophets. This is the wording of the role model of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, Sayyidina Ibrahim. Those who follow me, they're a part of my nation. And those who don't and disobey me, Ya Rabb, you're forgiving and you're merciful. He is hoping that they find something that's worthy, that works out for them yawm al-qiyamah. He continues alayhi salatu wasalam. It is ربنا إني أسكنت من ذريتي بواد غير ذي زرع عند بيتك المحرم. Oh my Lord, I have put my family in a place where there is no green, at the spot where your sacred house is. He's saying this when Ismail was still a baby, right? Ismail was still a baby, there was nothing there. And he said بيتك المحرم, where your sacred house is, before he built it. So Ibrahim knew it was already there. I'm just trying to prove to you a point. So when we talk about Hajj, you already know the evidence from the Quran. رَبَّنَا لِيُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ. Oh my Lord, may they establish their prayers. فَجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ تَهْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ. May people from all around come to them. May the hearts and the consciousnesses of people find their way to them. وَارْزُقُهُم مِّنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ. And grant them their provision from the fruits of the earth. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَشْكُرُونَ. So that they may be thankful and grateful. And this is the piece of the verse I wanted to put. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَشْكُرُونَ. So that they may show gratitude and be thankful. He continues alayhi salam, رَبَّنَا إِنَّكَ تَعْلَمُ مَا نُخْفِي وَمَا نُعْلِنُ وَمَا يَخْفَى عَلَى اللَّهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. My Lord, indeed you know that which is hidden, that which is apparent, and nothing is hidden from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth or in the cosmos. الحمد لله الذي وهب لي على الكبر إسماعيل وإسحاق إن ربي لسميع الدعاء. All praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who granted me at an old age Ismail and Ishaq, my two sons. Indeed, my Lord is the one who hears all supplication. These verses in Surah Ibrahim show you, they're beautiful on so many levels, because you hear Ibrahim alayhi salam express his ambitions, express his hopes for the future, what he wants for his nation, what he wants for his children, what he wants for humanity. How grateful he is for what he has in his life. How he hopes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends to the people of Mecca enough provision so that they may be thankful as well. So that they may take what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants them and they can show gratitude for it as well. The ability to show gratitude, in its own sense, it's a blessing. In its own sense, it's a blessing. Because miskeen, wallahi, the person who has a blessing and doesn't recognize it. You feel bad for him. You feel bad for someone who's carrying in their hands an extremely valuable, priceless blessing, and they don't recognize it, they don't see it. Not only are they not capable of enjoying it, they can't show gratitude for it, and they won't get ajr yawm al-qiyamah for it. This is something that we have to put more effort, in my opinion, in teaching our children, the next generation, of what they actually have, what is offered to them, what opportunities actually exist for them, what they're capable of achieving, how high, the sky is the limit for them. Understanding that that is not the case for most people on this planet. That even yourself as a father, that was not the case for you when you were younger. That you could not have the ambitions that they can have. That you did not have the opportunities that they do have right now. And helping them recognize that. It doesn't happen through strictness and through anger. It happens through coaching and mentoring and helping them see, by showing them how things can be the opposite and how it is the opposite for so many, so that they can show gratitude. Because once they show gratitude for what they have, they will utilize the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a meaningful way. They'll utilize it in a way that will please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and will take them in a direction that they want to go. And Ibrahim alayhi salam, that's what his hope was for us. Right? It happened exactly as he hoped it, alayhi salatu wasalam. He hoped that for us. فَجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ تَهْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ. May people come to them. May they be magnets to the hearts and the minds and the consciousnesses of people. And then may you grant them provision. And then may they find the ability to be grateful for it. As he was, alayhi salatu wasalam, in his life. As he was grateful for knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and being mu'min and having 2 children who were also Muslim. He was very grateful for what he had, alayhi salam, even though he didn't have much. Ibrahim was not a wealthy man. He was not well followed in his life, by the way. He did not have a good fellowship. His fellowship happened after he passed away, alayhi salatu wasalam. He's the most followed person on the planet. At least people claim to follow him, even though most of them are wrong. But they claim to follow Ibrahim. During his life, he didn't have that. During his life, it was very few people who listened to him, alayhi salatu wasalam. But he was grateful anyways for what he was given. And it's being able to recognize those gifts, those blessings, and showing gratitude for them. You show gratitude for your blessings by utilizing them and using them in a way that's beneficial. That's how you show gratitude. Saying thank you or saying alhamdulillah is an obvious need. Like you are obligated to do that. It would be it'd be very rude and disrespectful for you not to. Not to say alhamdulillah, to show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at least verbally some degree of praise and gratitude. But true gratitude is shown through the utilization of these opportunities. Is taking these blessings. وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. There is not one scholar of tafsir who explained this ayah in the fashion of, go around talking about the blessings that you have to others and showing them off. Not one of them. But rather the usage of this ayah in the Quran is to take what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you and then go and use it in ways that are beneficial for others. That's what fahaddith means. It doesn't mean to talk about it, but actually make it something that's worth talking about by doing something with it, by doing something of value with it. As the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam did, and all those who had connections to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did as well. The second verse that I'm going to share with you tonight, inshaAllah ta'ala, in surat Al-Hijr, that will be recited in this second set of 4 rak'at tonight, comes at the end of surat Al-Hijr, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَاكَ سَبْعًا مِّنَ الْمَثَانِي وَالْقُرْآنَ الْعَظِيمِ لا تمدن عينيك إلى ما متعنا به أزواجا منهم ولا تحزن عليهم واخفض جناحك للمؤمنين وقل إني أنا النذير المبين كما أنزلنا على المقتسمين. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam something that should be told to all of us, and we should carry it in our hearts and our minds at all times. Indeed, O Muhammad, O Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, آتَيْنَاكَ, we have granted you, سَبْعًا مِّنَ الْمَثَانِي, 7. So, I've talked about al-Mathani before in the past and where it comes from a linguistic perspective, and it's a little bit of it's a little bit of explanation, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. But al-Mathani, one of the meanings for it are gifts, are gems or pearls, something that has high value. So he's talking about sab'an min al-mathani. He's talking about 7 things of high value, and he's pointing out to the 7 verses of Surah Al-Fatiha. We gave you sab'an min al-mathani, wal-Qur'an al-azim, and the totality of the magnificent and holy and noble Qur'an that you have. He is saying that, subhanahu wa ta'ala, we gave you 7 gems, 7 mathani, 7 words that will be recited time and time again, never getting bored of them, never coming to a point where you're not benefiting from them, always finding something within them that you can learn from, which is what the Surah Al-Fatiha is. It's the key. We can't start any part of the Quran in the Salah without reading it first. It's like you're not permitted to recite anything from His word, subhanahu wa ta'ala, before you recite this first. This is the key. Yeah, you want to read the Quran? you need your key. You have to recite this surah first to validate everything after it. سبع من المثاني, seven pearls, 7 words of wisdom, 7 verses. Fatiha. وَالْقُرْآنَ الْعَظِيمِ, and the great Qur'an. Why is he being told this? To be said so that the second ayah makes sense. لا تمدن عينيك إلى ما متعنا به أزواجا منهم. Don't extend your eyesight, your eyes. So this is a figure of speech, meaning don't look elsewhere. Don't perk yourself up with your eyes looking for something else. تمدن عينيك إلى ما متعنا به أزواجا منهم. Don't look at what we granted other pairs of people in terms of blessings and ease and wealth and status and strength and whatever else they have in their lives. Don't forget what I just gave you. Don't lose track or lose sight of the most valuable bounty and blessing that you will ever carry in your life. Don't lose sight of that by looking at what someone else has on the other side of the fence. أزواجا منهم زهرة الحياة الدنيا, in another verse. In surat Al-Kahf, he says زهرة الحياة الدنيا, the flower of this life, the flower of this. He didn't say it here, but it's talked about elsewhere. ولا تحزن عليهم, and don't be sad for them. واخفض جناحك للمؤمنين, and continue to show humility to all those who follow you in belief. The Prophet ﷺ is told to do 2 things. Number 1, don't get distracted by the blessings of other people. Don't waste time looking at them, see what they have over there. Because often when you do that, Shaitan will find his way in and say, oh, it's greener, isn't it? It's way nicer over there. He has a better deal. Yeah, your luck has always been garbage. From day one, you've never got a good shot at anything. It's always been just one musibah after the other for you, hasn't it been? Miskeen Allah, I don't know how you're living. How do you even put up with yourself? What life is this that you live? You must be worth it. This is what Shaitan sits down and tells you. He'll spend time telling this to you. Oh, Allah, you have nothing. You have nothing. Look at what he has over there. Look. Every single time he opens a door, there's gold behind it. You garbage. Every time you open the door, you reek of it. There's no point. He keep on telling you this to you so that you stop seeing the value of what you have and get obsessed by what others have. And that's the biggest loss of life, is not recognizing what he gave you. And in the example here, the Prophet ﷺ is being told, I gave you سبعا من المثاني والقرآن. I gave you the 7 pearls of my wisdom and the Quran. What more could you possibly want? What more valuable is, what out there is more valuable than that? Why would you look elsewhere to see? Why? What are you looking at? There's nothing to see. You have them. You have the gem of gems. You have the ultimate blessing, and everyone should be looking at you. Everyone should be looking at what you have. Everyone should be looking over their fences to see what you've got. You're carrying Al-Quran Al-Azim in your hands. They're the ones who... That's why the second piece of this command, وَلَا تَحْزَنْ عَلَيْهِمْ, and don't be sad for them. What do you mean? See, for the Prophet ﷺ, unlike you and I, when we look over the fence, we see something that's greener and we start wanting it. The Prophet ﷺ, when he sees other people's blessings, he gets upset. How could you be happy with that? Why are you content with that? I have something much more beautiful. Listen to this. But they're content with the little that they have. The millions and the billions and the wealth and the status. They're happy with that. It's nothing. The Prophet ﷺ saying, look what I have. It's way better. But they won't listen. So he gets upset for them. He gets very upset. فَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ. He harms himself in worry ﷺ about them. And the Quran says, وَلَا تَحْزَنْ عَلَيْهِمْ. Don't be upset for them. You can't change what you can't change. وَاخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Show humbleness to all the believers around you. Be humble towards them in the way you treat them. Beautiful verses, wallahi. Absolutely beautiful. Why be humble? Because you were given the biggest blessing of all. When you're given the ultimate blessing, you have to be humble. Because you're like, I don't deserve this. I did nothing to earn this or to be owed this. I'm not entitled to it. So it causes a severe degree of humbleness in your heart when someone gives you a small amount of money, you're thankful. If they give you a moderate amount of money, you're really thankful. If they give you a huge amount of money, you're crazy thankful. But when they give you an amount of money you haven't heard of before, you don't know what to say. يُلْجِمُكَ كَرَمُهُ. His generosity will silence you. And all you can do is just feel humble and just feel ashamed and embarrassed that I don't deserve this. I don't know why you're being so generous to me. I don't know why you're treating me this way. Sometimes you can be so grateful that you can't say thank you because it doesn't, you're like, that word doesn't mean anything. How using this word in front of what you've done, I don't know if it's even appropriate to do so. Like it seems like a ripoff to say thank you for what you just gave me. Right? That's why you be humble. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, lay your wing nice and humble and low for the believers. Be humble with them. Be easy with them. Take it easy with them. You've been granted the ultimate blessing. He passed away, alayhi salatu wasalam. He left nothing. He left nothing, no money. When I say nothing, I'm talking about money, right? Because that's what we identify as. But really, he left everything, alayhi salatu wasalam. Really, in essence, he left everything, alayhi salatu wasalam. Everything and more. But he left no money. He left no wealth. He actually, his shield that he used to protect himself in war was pawned. He had to pawn it. They had to go pay it out to get it back. Ali had to go gather money and buy it back because it's the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam's dirh. It's his shield. It's something that belonged to him alayhi salatu wasalam. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala identifying what is the real blessing. As-sab'a al-mathani wal-Qur'an al-azim. That's the blessing. Everything else, don't stretch your neck looking at it. Don't extend your eyesight. It's nothing. And if you do, may you see that what they have is not as good as what you have, so don't be sad for them. Don't be sad. You can't change them. You can't change how people see things. Leave them. But may the magnitude of this blessing humble you. May the magnitude of the blessing of the Quran humble you for the rest of your life, that you are granted this. He could have easily not granted it to you. You could have easily gone astray in your life. You could have easily lost your way and lost your Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala thabata ala al-amr. You could have easily lost your way. How many people in the world have? How many people in the world are? But alhamdulillah, He chose you. And آتاك سبعا من المثاني والقرآن العظيم. And He granted you the 7 pearls and the Quran, and you're here. Or else you wouldn't be here if He didn't. Had He not done that, you wouldn't be. What would you be doing at 8:30 at night on a Wednesday? What would you be doing here if this was not the case? But He chose you, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So may that humble me and humble you. The final verse that I'm going to share with you within this Quranic theme of appreciating blessings is an ayah in surat Al-Nahl that's absolutely beautiful. It's just poetic in every way. Where He says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ ثم إذا مسكم الضر فإليه تجأرون ثم إذا كشف الضر عنكم إذا فريق منكم بربهم يشركون. And whatever is occurring to you in your life in terms of blessing, وَمَا بِكُم, whatever is applying to you, occurring to you, is happening to you in your life in terms of blessings, فَمِنَ اللَّهِ, it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It comes from one source. It comes from Him. May you always have the ability to see your blessings as the source of them being Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is a very, very critical and crucial ability. If you don't have the ability to do that, if you get lost a lot by seeing the blessings in your life having a different source, coming from someone else, or there being a sharik in how they came to you, I mean it came from Allah and from this source as well, then you're going to be in trouble. The ability to see all that's good in your life coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you see what's coming from Allah, if you see the good things in your life and you even believe that you are responsible partially for it, then you're missing out on the purity of what you should feel. The purity of it is that you see this coming only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm not talking about you saying, well, Fulan gave me the wealth. Sure. No, مَنْ لَمْ يَشْكُرِ النَّاسَ لَمْ يَشْكُرِ اللَّهِ. If you don't have the ability to thank people, then you can't thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's thanking Allah through thanking the mediums that He uses. He uses mediums for giving you things. So He gives you a proper upbringing through your parents. So you have to thank them because they were the medium for that, for your life and your upbringing. You're going to thank the people who show you generosity and offer you opportunities and pay you for jobs and be kind to you because He is doing all that for you through these mediums, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you have to show those mediums a certain degree of appreciation as a way of showing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appreciation. But at the end, you know that anything good in your life came from Allah, especially the stuff that you feel that you're partially credited for. Get rid of that piece. It's not true. Get rid of it. You don't even know if it's true. You don't know. You don't know if it's true. Credit it all to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Especially the stuff that you do. Or else, وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ وَمِنْ أَنفُسِكُم, he would have said. All the good things in your life are from Allah and from yourself. You also appreciate. He didn't say that. He said, فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. And then he wanted to teach us the lesson subhanahu wa ta'ala by giving us a scenario. Instead of making a long argument, just give us a little bit of a, this is what he said. ثُمَّ إِذَا مَسَّكُمُ الضُّرُّ. You don't do that in your lives, unfortunately. You don't have the ability to see all of the blessings that you have as coming directly and exclusively from the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then a difficulty comes your way. But then you are dealt a hand you don't like. You're granted something that causes you pain and is a hardship for you. It's a misfortune. It's not enjoyable. Puts you in distress. فَإِلَيْهِ تَجْأَرُونَ. And then you turn to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala in absolute need. You turn to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala screaming. تَجْأَر is when you yell out loud. Is when you demand things. When you're aggressive about it. You're very enthusiastic about it. So you turn to Him aggressively asking for things. If you're going to turn to Him when you are at your lowest, then make sure you turn to Him when you're at your highest too. Because it's not appropriate. If at the moment when you are completely lost and you're in pain and you're scared and you have nothing, and you turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Rabb dakhilak, Ya Rabb, through you, then when you're doing well and the blessings are coming through, right, and life is going well, remember that it's also only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You have to choose a lane here. And then he continues, ثُمَّ إِذَا كَشَفَ الضُّرَّ عَنْكُمْ. And then after you turn to Him demanding the ease from this difficulty, He grants you the ease from this difficulty. إِذَا فَرِيقٌ مِّنْكُمْ بِرَبِّهِمْ يُشْرِكُونَ. And then a group will go and commit shirk again. And will fail to see مَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. They'll fail to see that first piece of the verse again. Meaning most of what's happening to us in our lives are lessons after lessons after lessons of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala trying to teach you how you're supposed to see things, how you're supposed to perceive the world that you live in, the choices that He's making for you subhanahu wa ta'ala, His decree, the stuff that you don't have the ability to change. He's trying to get you to see it in a certain way. Identify, if you're not grateful for things, you can't. How are you going to be grateful of Jannat al-Na'im if you can't be grateful for the little that you have in this life? If you can't show gratitude for a small blessing, you're going to show gratitude for the blessing of blessings, for an eternity of bliss. Now, if you fail to show gratitude for a small blessing, then you're not going to do very well with an eternity of bliss. You have to prove in this life that you can show gratitude for everything. There's a description of the Prophet ﷺ from Hind ibn Abi Hala in the collection of Imam Tirmidhi and Tabarani. And there's some question on the authenticity of this long narration, really. But I love this description of him, ﷺ, where he describes and he says, يُعَظِّمُ النِّعْمَةَ وَإِن دَقَّتْ. He gratifies or he magnifies a blessing, no matter how small it is, no matter how small the blessing is. He magnifies it, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. يُعَظِّمُ النِّعْمَةَ. He shows respect for the ni'mah, even if it's really small, even if it's something that most people take for granted. It's the stuff that we take for granted that will be our demise. It's the stuff that we fail to see in our lives. The good things that are going on that we lose sight of because our eyesights are looking elsewhere, because we're seeing what other people have and we're hoping maybe for that one over there, and we're failing to see what we actually have here. And then failing to see that what we have comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so we owe something for this. It's not free. It's not free. He gives it to you subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it's not free. You owe something for this. You owe to use this in a way that is beneficial, that is helpful, that gives back to the people around you, that offers those who don't have as much as you something from what you have been given generously by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But most of us, that's why he says, وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِيَ الشَّكُورِ. Such a small percentage of my servants have the ability to show gratitude. Sayyidina Umar used to make the dua, Allahumma ja'alni min al-qaleel. Oh Allah, make me amongst those who are the few, who have the ability to show gratitude, because most of us just lose sight of things. We get into the problem of ilf al-ni'mah. Ilf al-ni'mah is when you take blessings for granted. You get used to them. Get used to them. You build an entitlement towards it. You feel entitled to what you've got, and you want more. And when you don't get exactly what you're hoping for, you get less than it, then you start getting disgruntled. And you miss the fact that you have so much already. And this is what the Quran is ongoingly trying to teach all of us. Just remember that you have so much right now. Be grateful for what you have. It doesn't mean that you can't be ambitious for other stuff. It doesn't mean that you can't work towards it, but are you content? Are you grateful? Are you happy and satisfied with the hand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has dealt you right now? That has to be there, or else you can't enjoy life. You can't enjoy life if you don't. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those who show Him gratitude subhanahu wa ta'ala. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه اجمعين.
الله أكبر الله